So, a man of many talents. Please join me in welcoming Rob as our next speaker this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. All right. And thank you for that introduction, Simon. Yeah, well, I don't have a lot of time for those things, but we do what we can. I'm an observational guy. I look around, I think this room is very yellow. And why are there 9 chandeliers? This is sort of how my brain works. I'm always looking and observing different pieces. And so this concept of trust and relational engagement is a kind of new concept for me, but something I've been digging into a lot this year. And I think it applies really heavily to what we're doing, particularly in pharma and customer experiences. I think that trust itself has begun more and more to fracture, not just in pharma, but in everything that we're experiencing. And over time, even decades, it's sort of eroded and gotten worse and worse. And this year in particular, I just keep fixating on it. And I think trust is the backbone of any great society, in any team, any country, any leadership, any organization. You need it. And when you know organizations that don't have trust, they grind, right? They slow down. And they're so expensive, and they're so tedious, and it's so draining. Stephen Covey's got a great book on the speed of trust and how much everything speeds up and is more efficient when you have it. So before I get into all that, I'm going to share an adorable photo of my 4-month-old daughter right here. I have no idea how this ended up in the deck. Oops, I guess we'll just leave it up there because it's here. How embarrassing. Yeah, well, this is where my story starts. So before this little one came into the world this year, I was at my wife's OB for a checkup and an appointment. And so he comes in and he says, hey, I'm sorry I'm running a little late. I actually just had to finish up this crazy survey on physician burnout. And of course, that got me curious, like what's going on? What's causing burnout? So he starts talking to me and he says, well, believe it or not, just this week I had a new couple come in and I was counseling them. And the whole time I'm talking to them, the husband's sitting down and he's on his phone, typing every single time I'm talking. So at first I'm not thinking of it, but he keeps going. And then I look at him and I say, hey, you know, all these notes are going to be in the write-up. You don't have to take notes on everything I'm saying. And he looks up and he says, oh, I'm not taking notes. I'm fact-checking you in real time. And, you know, our OB doesn't miss a beat. So he goes, well, how am I doing? And he goes, pretty good so far. Pretty good so far. So he tells me this story, and it just sits in there. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. And so, meanwhile, ROB, he's been doing this for 40 years. He's delivered over 1,000 babies across multiple generations. He's literally the head of the department at Scripps out in California. And so this concept stuck with me, and the more I kept thinking about it, the more I kept asking questions. Why? Why? How is this happening? What's happened since the physician's word was sacrosanct? And now we've come to this, where Dr. Google is getting tested against the physician with all the experience. And so I started asking questions like any good marketer should in the mirror. Can you trust marketers? Maybe that's where we should start. And that led me to think randomly of this guy. Does anyone in this room know who Neil Strauss is? Got a couple people, right? Neil Strauss is an author who in the 2000s put a book out called The Game. And The Game is about this underground world of pickup artists, male pickup artists, that set out to game the system. They looked to break down and manipulate what builds attraction, and then use that as a roadmap so that men can seduce women. It's disgusting to just say it. It's deplorable to say it. But this was a whole thing in the 2000s. There was a movement around this. A lot of people, it was a bestseller. There was a lot of information on that. And I think that the game is what happens when the outcome trumps the purpose of what we're doing. When winning defeats the whole purpose of what we're trying to do. And I think as marketers, we're sometimes guilty of that. But I'm not here to shame anyone because I don't think it's black and white. There's no devil horns on people's heads out in this audience right here. There's also no halos, but I'm going to say that we're a complex species, and it's not black and white. So I want to dig a little deeper into it and get into the concept of winning. So let me ask you guys here, how many of you have a CEO that's cool if you miss your numbers? All right, we got one. That's good. That's pretty good. That's more than most. But the real question then is, how many people have a CEO that also asks you to be innovative? Right. So here's where the problem is, right? You can't be innovative if you can't lose. I don't know if there's a better example than our boy Elon, who has blown up 3 rockets before learning how to get one off the launch pad. Now, I don't know if the numbers are official, but from what I've read, somewhere in the ballpark of $260 million, poof, in flames over several years of work to get it. Now, throughout that, on the other side of it, defying most odds, they're launching every month, every 2 months. They're up in space constantly. They figured it out. They've got it. We can't do that in pharma. Failure's terrifying in pharma. It's absolutely off the table. And so I think about that, and I'm like, okay, well, this is starting to feel like one of the reasons of what has eroded trust. So we're going to figure out, we're going to kind of dissect this, and then we're going to build it back up and figure out what can we do and where can we go from here. So if we can't innovate, really, or take risks to innovate, then we can't keep up because the needs of customers are constantly changing. And we know that one thing that every failed business has in common is a commitment to solving today's problems with yesterday's solutions. And if you can't lose, you can only use yesterday's solutions. So you can see where we're starting to build this paradox that's causing us problems. You take that and you couple it with conflicting priorities. So what? As marketers and people in this audience, your goal is what? You have a product that you believe in. You have a brand that you believe in, a company that you believe in that's going to help patients, help physicians. You want to get that in as many people's hands as possible to change lives and improve. And if you could be profitable, great. That makes perfect sense. Is that the FDA's priority? No. Is that regulatory's priority? No. Is it shareholders' priority? Is it executive leadership's priority? Not exactly. I think we've had some conversations about that yesterday in a lot of those presentations. So you got all these conflicting priorities many times within your own organization. It makes it hard to make good decisions and to take chances and to figure out solutions to these challenges. Now, I understand the FDA and MLR and regulatory, they're there for a purpose. We are hardwired to overreach and try to win. I think that's natural. We, as marketers, we want to figure out how to leap over obstacles, go under them, around them, blow them up, circumvent them. That's the thrill of what we do. We're trying to find that shortcut. But we need a little bit of oversight, and now I'm too young. I missed the days before the Sunshine Act. I missed them all. I didn't get to go to Cancun with physicians. I didn't get to see Elton John at an NSM or the Rolling Stones or whatever happened in those days. I only got to hear the stories of it. Now I can't give a pen to a physician if it has a logo on it, unless it's an educational pen. It's ridiculous. Maybe we went too far, but again, it's difficult, and that's part of eroded trust and all the oversight and regulation that's come because of it. So, okay, you can start seeing the formula. When you have win or else, plus you're not allowed to take major risks, that might be why the average tenure of a pharma marketer is about 2.5 to 3 years at a company. Because it's that hard to maintain what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. The deck is stacked against us. That might be the reason why. That's not the emoji I'm supposed to use. It's supposed to be the thinker, but that's cool. That might be why questionable decisions get made, because you have to get the short-term wins. And that also might be why trust continues to erode in our industry. So great. I've found the flaw. We've pointed out something. There's no superpower in that. The question now is, how do we take this information today? Can we actually create any kind of mindset shift that might help us in small baby steps to start shifting some momentum towards rebuilding or regaining and restoring trust? It starts with turning the things we know we should do into the things we must do. So I'm going to talk about a few of those concepts briefly. The first one is we must care. And this is like, duh, right? Like, of course you care. You're all here. You care. If you have your jobs, you care. You care greatly about what it is. But the problem with that is that everyone in this room has a different definition of what it means to care. Care is not a quantifiable term, at least not with how we currently define it. So maybe we should look at redefining it or coming up with our own terms on how to do that. For instance, maybe how much you care about something is what you're willing to sacrifice or fight for to change it. That starts putting things in more perspective. Maybe you must care enough to listen, which I think we all established that we do and we appreciate, but then to take action from the listening and what you've learned, good or bad, and allow it and apply it to grow in your position, with your brand, with your customers, and their experiences. That's hard. It's exhausting, actually. Like, you do it once, you do it twice, you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm good for this year. Enough. But it just keeps changing. It doesn't matter if you accomplish and you win and you figure it out. The next one is coming just a few months down the line when the world changes again. And so, well, this is why we have vacation, so we can take some time to recharge and figure this stuff out. Or some people just stop because they'll go crazy if they don't. I'm empathizing with this crew. I'm not here to preach on a soapbox. I actually really understand the challenges of this industry, or believe that I do. So, we know that we also need to risk being vulnerable, okay? So I show a picture of my infant, my daughter, okay? There's a level of vulnerability to that. Maybe you guys will pay attention a little more from it. I don't know. Maybe you'll respect or you'll understand or you'll connect. Okay. It's more than just someone up here trying to preach or lecture or tell a story. There's something deeper there. So how do we apply that in pharma? It's really hard. What are you going to do? Talk about all the problems of your... You have ISI for that, right? It's like, we don't have time. It's too risky if you're going to talk about the downsides of a product. No executive is going to be okay with that. And so, of course, trust is eroding with patients and with HCPs. So the next thing is we need to make sure that we can align agendas. So what do we mean by that? It's like, okay, well, we're hardwired to smell BS. We can smell an agenda from a mile away, especially if it's not congruent with our own, right? I don't really have an agenda up here right now besides just telling you how I feel and what my experiences is. Now, hopefully, your guard's not up. If it's interesting, you're paying attention. If not, it's cool. You don't have to. But people that have a sole agenda of prescribe our product because it's the best for you and we don't want to hear anything else about it, that's what a lot of messages that are out there in the space are. And the ones that don't do that and align their agendas to what the customers want, those are the best companies in the world. Those are the best brands in the world. And you could think of a few. I think it was Dupixent won most respected brand last year or this year because it truly felt aligned with all of its customers, with its patients and the physician's needs. So it's hard. It's hard to do that. But the best we can do if we can't fail is to align the agenda. As marketers, we have an agenda. We have to sell our product. You can't get rid of that. So we have to align it. Win-win, win-win-win, whatever you want to call it. That's what we have to do. It's hard, but it's possible. And the last thing I want to cover here on the topics of how we can address this and help make micro adjustments to improve is we have to watch the assumptions. And this is something I'm paying close attention throughout this entire conference. And I hear all these discussions around AI and social and these paths and this opportunity and these ways to do more with less and to automate. And it's not, I'm not knocking anything. It's incredible technology. It's wonderful. But this assumes we got it all right. This assumes the message that you're launching out there is correct, that you have strong brand values, that you have core strategy in place, that you have channels, open channels of communication with your customer to listen and to understand and to implement feedback. It assumes we have all that stuff in place. And in my experience, my entire career of working with all the clients I have, all the launches, the relaunches, the brand pivots, all those different pieces, I can tell you there's room to close the gap there. There's room to improve on the fundamentals. So it's not to ignore these pieces, but it's to make sure that we have the core pieces done, and then we amplify with the new trends and secrets and ways to circumvent the challenges. So if we take all of these pieces and we put them together, this is what I would call a relational customer experience. This is not some profound proprietary recipe of mine. This is just simply what I attribute the success in my career and the people that I've worked with and the clients I've worked with from an agency standpoint throughout it and time. It's a fairly simple concept. And if you look, in generally accepted psychological pathways and milestones between two absolute strangers meeting to the point where they become inseparable, lifelong friends, partners, or loved ones. There's 8 stages, roughly, that they'll go through in order to get there. From initial contact all the way down to the most committed. And I realized, well, this is pretty simple, actually, because these things line up pretty damn well with the core milestones that we have to do as marketers in pharma. And just by simply shifting our mindset to connect our tactics and strategy into this recipe of relational CX, it just puts tooth into what we do. It puts more muscle. It makes more sense in what we're doing. So you don't have these tactics in isolation as much as you do. We are accelerating and building relationships. And we can't be friends with everyone, thank God. And we don't have to appeal to everyone. But we want to appeal to as most people as we can, and we can do that incrementally by following that recipe. Now, all this stuff is very conceptual. I want to leave you guys with something that is tangible that you can use. This is something I would share in a pitch. So you can have this, I can share the slides, whatever this is. This is a complete roadmap of tactics from the patient and HCP sides, completely digital, mind you, not just face-to-face. We can do face-to-face. We got that down pretty well. This is a path that links core digital tactics to each stage of relational building and relation building. It's the same stuff you're already doing, but it's mapped now logically from an initial contact into commitment. And that's what's really most important. And if you can do that, not only will you get more investment from your team, your agencies, your partners, and everyone else that's in your cause, you're going to build more trust with your audience. And that's what it's all about. I'm not going to go through this line by line, and you have this, like I said, I'll share this. And just having the map is good, but then the next thing is, then implementing them, and what's the tone of each piece, and how are you moving it? Like, you can get as granular as you need to get. And so I would implore you to challenge your agency, your partners, your team, the executors of these things. Just ask them. Just follow them. You can even send a shot of the steps and just say, hey, what if we remapped everything towards building a relationship from start to finish, to committed brand loyalists? What would that look like? They'll jump on board. They'd be happy to, because again, it provides more meaning and a holistic vision for what they're trying to accomplish and something to sink their teeth into. And if we do that, well, and in theory, we can start bridging that gap and divide, which took decades to get to where it is, and may take a long time to get out of where it is, but it starts here, I believe, with people in this room or watching this recording, to just make slight mindset shifts and changes and apply them to the day-to-day jobs that we do. So thank you. My name is Robert Heller. I'm on LinkedIn. I post there often, and I welcome you to join or follow me there as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was great.